January 1943 hangs over the Eastern Front like a grey curtain, a season where even hope seems to freeze in the air. Snow lies in uneven ridges across the steppe, shaped by winds that feel older than the war itself. Somewhere along the battered lines near the Don River, a young man named Alexei Voronin steps down from the back of a supply truck and feels the cold bite through his coat as sharply as any blade. His new home stands before him, a row of T-34s, engines silent, hulls dusted with frost. They look less like machines and more like sleeping beasts, resting before another hunt. The metal smells of oil mixed with the bitter scent of winter. Alexei touches the armor of one tank, his tank now, and the cold stings his fingertips. A voice behind him breaks the silence. Captain Mikhail Sidorov, hardened by 2 brutal years of war, approaches with a slow, heavy step. His face carries the exhaustion of a man who has buried too many comrades. "Remember this," he says. "A tank is shelter, but it is also a grave. Treat it with respect, and maybe it lets you see another sunrise." Alexei is only 19. He left a small farm outside Ryazan, still hearing his mother's last words each night. But here, in this endless white wasteland, childhood fades quickly. He climbs into the T-34's turret for the first time. The cramped walls press close. The darkness smells of fuel and metal, and the distant echo of artillery rolls across the frozen plains. The war has carved its scars into every horizon. Stalingrad is burning far to the south. German forces still strike like wounded animals, and Alexei realizes in that first hour on the front that the path ahead will be written in steel fire, and the choices he never expected to make. By March 1943, winter begins to loosen its grip, but the Eastern Front offers no comfort in the thaw. The snow melts into thick, clinging mud, a battlefield that swallows boots, wheels, and bodies without discrimination. For the tank brigades positioned near the Donets River, the changing season means only one thing: movement. And movement means battle. Alexei has been in the brigade barely 2 months when the order comes. Engines cough to life at dawn, sending black smoke drilling into the pale sky. The ground trembles under the rumbling line of T-34s moving toward the front. Inside his turret, Alexei feels each vibration through his ribs, as if the machine is imprinting itself onto him. Captain Sidorov sits below, feeding coordinates to the crew with calm precision. The man's voice has the steadiness of an anchor in a rising storm. Alexei clings to it, knowing that everything else, every sound, every smell, pulls him deeper into fear. The first sign of the enemy arrives as a distant thunder, not weather, not nature, artillery. Shells crash down ahead, throwing fountains of dirt and mud into the air. The brigade spreads out, engines roaring louder as they push forward. Alexei wipes his palms on his trousers. They're already slick with sweat. Then it happens, the moment every new tanker remembers for the rest of his life. A German Panzer IV emerges from behind a small ridge, its silhouette sharp and unmistakable. For an instant, the battlefield holds its breath. The crews on both sides know the truth. Whoever fires first will live. Sidorov's command slices through the tension. Target, hull, 200 meters. Alexei swings the turret. The steel groans. He centers the crosshair on the Panzer's front plate. "On target!" he shouts. "Fire!" The cannon unleashes its fury, kicking back with a force that rattles Alexei's bones. Smoke fills the turret. He blinks through it, searching for the result. A hit, but not a kill. The Panzer reverses, firing as it withdraws. The German shell slams into the ground just meters to their right, showering the T-34 in dirt and stones. The shockwave sends Alexei's heart racing. Above them, the whine of engines grows sharper. Shadows cross the ground. Stukas, the scream of their dive, echoes across the battlefield like a blade drawn over steel. Explosions chase the tanks, pillars of smoke rising in violent rhythm. Alexei ducks instinctively, though he knows metal overhead, not his body, bears the danger. "Keep moving," Sidorov roars. "Don't stop! Don't ever stop!" The T-34 lurches forward, slipping in the mud, but finding its grip again. Shells whistle past. The air becomes a storm of noise and fire. Crews shout from neighboring tanks. Some shouts turn into screams, abruptly cut off. Time loses its meaning in the chaos. 10 minutes feels like an hour. An hour feels like a day. When the enemy finally withdraws, silence falls in broken pieces. Engine noise fades. Artillery drifts away into distant echoes. Smoke curls across the fields like ghosts searching for their bodies. Alexei's hands tremble. His throat burns. He tries to speak, but can only breathe. Shallow, uneven breaths inside the metal chamber. Sidorov looks up at him from below. "You survived your first fight," he says quietly. "Now you understand." Alexei nods, though the truth feels heavier than words. In a single morning, he has learned what it means to live inside a machine built for death. He has learned that heroes do not feel brave, only alive. The mud dries, the air warms, and for the first time in months, the Eastern Front tastes dust instead of frost. The thawed earth hardens into a vast, sun-bleached plain stretching from horizon to horizon. For tank crews, this kind of summer brings no relief. Only clearer lines of sight, faster movement, and the whisper of something enormous gathering strength. Alexei feels it long before he hears it spoken aloud. The coming storm at Kursk. Rumors drift through the brigade like drifting smoke. Panthers, tigers, new German formations regrouping, reinforced, rearmed, and hungry for a decisive victory. No one knows the exact day they will strike, but everyone senses the weight of what's approaching. For now, the brigade moves steadily north, leaving behind villages burned down to their stone foundations. The T-34s bite into the dry earth with snarling tracks, kicking up long trails of dust that hang in the air like fading memories. Inside the turret, Alexei keeps the gun steady as Captain Sidorov studies the horizon through binoculars. The old commander rarely speaks these days. His silence is not emptiness, but calculation, a soldier listening to the heartbeat of the front. During the long march, the world becomes a rhythm of engines, the smell of diesel, and the clatter of tools against armor. Every few hours, the column halts to refuel, repair, or rest under the open sky. Crews stretch their legs and lie in the tall grass, trying to steal a moment of calm before the next push. Sometimes Alexei looks up at passing clouds and wonders if men on the other side of this front, the German tankers, are doing the same, wondering if they will meet, wondering who will fire first. wondering who will die. The closer they get to Kursk, the clearer the purpose becomes. Soviet engineers swarm through fields and forests, digging trenches, laying mines, building anti-tank pits, positioning thousands of guns. The land itself transforms into a weapon, the largest defensive preparation the world has ever seen. When Alexei sees it for the first time, he feels both awe and fear. Awe at the scale, fear at the reason behind it. The brigade is assigned to a sector near Prokhorovka, an area of gentle rolling fields and scattered farms. Days turn into a slow, grinding routine of fortification. Tank crews cover their machines in branches and netting, hiding them under the shade of trees or deep within trenches carved only for steel. Alexei works relentlessly. He digs until his shoulders burn. He scrapes mud from the treads, checks ammunition crates, and helps camouflage the turret with fresh foliage. All around him, men labor in silence, as though speaking aloud might summon something they're not ready to face. In rare moments of rest, they talk around small fires. Someone mentions the new Tiger tanks, armor too thick, guns too powerful. Another swears the Germans will come with 300 of them. A mechanic, wiping grease from his hands, simply mutters, "If they come, they come." Sidorov listens, but offers no speculation. Instead, he kneels beside the tank one evening and places his palm on the steel. "She'll keep us alive if we do our part," he says quietly. "Trust the machine. Trust each other." His voice carries the weight of a man who has lost enough friends to know that trust is the only shield armor cannot provide. As June bleeds into July, the heat grows unbearable. Sweat rolls down backs, turning uniforms stiff with salt. Dust clings to every surface. Engines overheat. Water supplies run dangerously low. But none of it slows the preparation. Every sunrise feels like the moment before a blade is drawn. Every sunset feels like a promise that the next day may be worse. Then one night, long after the sky turns black and the fires burn low, Alexei hears a distant rumble. Not thunder, not wind, something deeper, heavier. The storm they've been waiting for is finally beginning, and when it breaks, the world will burn. Dawn on the 12th of July 1943 rises as a thin red line over the fields of Prokhorovka, a warning painted across the sky. The air is still, unnervingly calm. Birds don't sing. Grass doesn't sway. Even the engines seem to hesitate, as if every machine senses what is about to unfold. Then the silence breaks. Artillery erupts from the German side in a rolling thunder that moves like a tidal wave across the land. Shells burst in the distance, then close enough that the ground beneath Alexei's boots seems to buckle. He climbs into his turret, heart pounding so hard he can hear it louder than the explosions. Sidorov's voice comes sharp and steady. "Engines on. Close hatches. Prepare to advance." The T-34 trembles as its engine growls to life. Alexei wipes dust from his periscope, but the horizon is already vanishing behind clouds of smoke kicked up by the barrage. Through it, faint shapes begin to appear, dark, hulking, unmistakable. German armor, panthers, tigers, dozens of them. And behind Alexei, hundreds of Soviet tanks roar forward to meet them. The brigade surges downhill like a steel avalanche, treads tearing across the fields. Alexei grips the turret handles as the T-34 leaps forward, each bump threatening to throw him off balance. The radio crackles with overlapping orders, warnings, screams, Visibility drops to almost nothing. Dust, smoke, flame. He sees the outline of a burning tank for a split second before they thunder past it. He sees another crew climbing out of their wreck, only to disappear in the fireball of a second shell. At this range, combat is no longer orderly. It is collision, point-blank shooting, instinct, chaos. "Target left," Sidorov shouts. Alexei swings the turret and finds a German Panther cutting across a field, its long barrel turning toward them. Before he can align the crosshair, the Panther fires. The shell shrieks by, close enough that Alexei feels the shockwaves slam against the hull. He fires back. The T-34's cannon hammers his chest like a giant fist. Through the smoke, he hears the satisfying crack of impact. The round punches into the Panther's side armor. Flames bloom. The turret stops moving. No time to celebrate. Another flash. A Tiger at close range, its gun searching for targets like a predator sniffing for wounded prey. Its shells rip through Soviet tanks one after another, each explosion a brutal punctuation mark in the chaos. Sidorov barks orders rapid fire, trying to cut through the storm. The crew responds with desperate precision, but they're hit, a glancing blow that shatters part of the track. The T-34 lurches violently, half stopping, half skidding. "Keep firing," the commander roars. Alexei obeys, though he can barely see. Every breath tastes of cordite and burning metal. Every second feels stolen from death. The battlefield becomes a single, living thing, a roaring monster of heat, noise, and fear. Tanks collide, ram, slip, ignite. Machine gun fire rattles against armor like angry hail. The sky disappears under layers of smoke and flame. And somewhere in that inferno, as the T-34 groans under the strain and the world shakes around them, Alexei realizes there is no way out of this except through fire, and he must drive straight into it. The battlefield narrows around them like the throat of a furnace. Smoke curls through every crack in the turret, mixing with the sharp sting of cordite until breathing feels like swallowing fire. The T-34 groans, crippled but still alive, half dragging its damaged track as it claws forward across the torn earth. Alexei wipes sweat and soot from his eyes. "Gun ready," he shouts. But Sidorov doesn't answer immediately. The commander is staring through the periscope, jaw clenched. His silence burns louder than the artillery. Then Alexei sees what Sidorov sees. A Tiger Y, thick armor, long barrel, the monster that tank crews whisper about in the dark, emerges through the smoke. Its turret turns with a calm, terrifying confidence, the kind only a machine built to dominate can afford. At this distance, its cannon feels as large as a doorway. "Load AP!" Alexei barks to the loader. The loader slams the shell into the breech. "Fire!" The gun recoils with a deafening blast. But something is wrong. The loader freezes. The recoil lever sticks. The cannon groans, hissing smoke. The gun is jammed. Alexei's chest tightens. He tries to clear it, hands moving with frantic speed, but the mechanism refuses to budge. The T-34 might as well be unarmed, and the Tiger has already seen them. It pivots fully toward their frozen hull. The barrel lowers. The engine behind its armor rumbles like a slow heartbeat. Sidorov whispers, almost too soft to hear, "She's going to fire." In that instant, one breath, one heartbeat, Alexei feels the world sharpen. The noise fades. The shaking stops. The fear falls away. Only a choice remains. He grabs the control levers, slams the throttle forward. The T-34 leaps like a wounded animal, refusing to die. Sidorov shouts something, maybe a warning, maybe approval, but it's lost in the roar of the engine. The Tiger fires. The shell misses by a margin so thin, Alexei feels the wind of it pass across the hull. He keeps accelerating. The ground rushes beneath them. The German crew tries to traverse the turret, but they're too slow. Impact. The T-34 slams into the Tiger's side with a violent, metallic scream. Alexei feels the crash travel through his body like a lightning strike. Steel twists, bolts shear, both tanks shudder under the force. The Tiger's turret jams, frozen at an awkward angle. Its engine sputters. Its tracks grind helplessly. The monster is wounded. Alexei's head swims. The world rings like a struck bell. Then he hears a heavy thud beside him. Sidorov, blood on his uniform, breath shallow, eyes dimming. He grips Alexei's arm and forces out the words, "Stay alive. Tell them we stood our ground." The commander's hand slips away. Outside, through the smoke and wreckage, Soviet infantry surge forward, using the disabled Tiger as cover. Alexei realizes the truth. Their collision bought the front precious seconds. Seconds that might save hundreds of lives. Seconds that cost Sidorov his own. He drove into the fire, and someone else paid the price. When the battle finally dies, it doesn't end with a cheer. It ends with a silence so heavy it feels like a second battlefield, one made of ghosts instead of steel. Smoke hangs over Prokhorovka like a low, unbroken ceiling. The sun fights to pierce it, casting weak, distorted rays across a valley of shattered armor. T-34s lie burned open like cracked shells. German Panthers smolder in black heaps. The earth is torn, cratered, soaked in oil and something darker. Alexei pulls himself out of the crippled T-34, every muscle shaking as if refusing to believe he's still alive. His boots sink into soft, churned soil. The air tastes metallic, thick with soot. He tries to call for his crew, but the words snag in his throat. Only two answer. The loader limps out, coughing violently. The driver crawls free, face pale and streaked with blood. Together, they stand beside the wrecked hull, staring at the place where Captain Sidorov still lies inside. Alexei can't bring himself to open the hatch again. Around him, scattered figures move through the haze. Other survivors, walking as if underwater, dazed, searching for someone who might answer back. Some kneel by destroyed tanks, whispering final words. Others wander with blank eyes, unable to accept what they see. A medic passes by and pauses. "We'll send a burial detail," he says quietly, glancing at the T-34. But Alexei barely hears him. His mind drifts back to Sidorov's last words, spoken in a voice fading even as the world roared around them. "Tell them we stood our ground." By the time reinforcements secure the field, the brigade's losses are counted. More than half are gone. Friends Alexei ate with, marched with, joked with, under the stars. Now they are names spoken in hushed, brittle tones. A junior officer approaches him later, handing him a canteen. "You fought well," the officer says. Alexei doesn't feel like he fought well. He feels like he survived by accident. He looks across Prokhorovka, this graveyard of steel, and understands something he never did before. Victory and loss can live in the same heartbeat. And sometimes, surviving is the heaviest burden of all. The months after Prokhorovka pass not in days or weeks, but in a slow, relentless tide of movement. One front collapses, another rises. The Red Army pushes west with a force shaped by tragedy, fueled by determination, and hardened by every grave left behind. Alexei becomes part of that tide. He is transferred to a rebuilt armored corps gathering strength in Ukraine. His new T-34 feels unfamiliar at first, too clean, too smooth, too quiet. The crew is younger than he is, some barely old enough to shave, all looking at him with the apprehension soldiers reserve for men who have seen things. They ask about Prokhorovka in hushed tones. Alexei never gives details. He only says, "Stay close to each other. Your crew is your life." Spring 1944 sees the Red Army surge through Ukraine, sweeping across liberated towns where burned walls still stand like broken teeth. The retreating Wehrmacht leaves ruin in its wake, villages gutted, wells poisoned, barns collapsed under the weight of scorched memories. Inside the turret, Alexei learns the rhythm of long campaigns. 1 hour, battle. The next, boredom. The next, grief. On the march to Korsun and later Lviv, the corps drives through endless fields, heavy with the smell of dust and wheat. At night, the men sleep under the tanks, using the steel hulls as protection against cold winds. Sometimes they speak, sometimes they stay silent, each man trapped with his own ghosts. By the summer offensive into Belarus, Operation Bagration explodes across the front like a tidal wave. German lines buckle and shatter, forests echo with artillery that never seems to stop. Roads clog with wrecked vehicles, horses, civilians fleeing from both sides of the war. Alexei's tank moves with a deadly efficiency born of experience. He calls targets faster. He hears danger before others notice it. He trusts instinct as much as orders, but the cost remains. He loses another driver in a mine explosion near Baranovichi. A new loader panics during his first battle and freezes until Alexei slaps him back to focus. War keeps remaking the crew as quickly as it tears them apart. Crossing into Poland in early 1945, the landscape changes. Towns lie silent, emptied by occupation and deportation. Snow falls again, softening the ruins but not the memories that cling to them. In Warsaw, Alexei sees buildings burned down to their bones. He sees civilians digging through rubble for anything that resembles a life. One evening, after a long day of clearing German rearguards, he shares half a loaf of bread with a Polish child hiding near a destroyed apartment block. She eats quietly, desperate and shaking. Alexei gives her his gloves before leaving. It's the only warmth he can offer. As the corps pushes toward the Oder River, exhaustion becomes a constant companion. The men move like shadows wrapped in smoke, driven by momentum more than strength. Every mile westward feels heavier, as if Europe itself is resisting the final chapters of the war. Yet every mile also brings them closer to Berlin, and the end none of them truly believe in. By January 1945, Alexei receives a promotion. He becomes a tank commander at last. His new crew salutes him, but he feels the weight of that salute like a burden more than an honor. Leadership in war isn't about glory. It's about responsibility. And responsibility means knowing that the men beside you might not survive the sunrise. Still, he climbs into his new turret, places his hand on the cold steel and whispers the same words Sidorov once spoke. "She'll keep us alive if we do our part." The road ahead stretches toward Germany, toward fire, ruin, and whatever remains of Alexei's strength. There is no turning back now. Berlin burns like a dying star. Alexei's tank rolls through streets hollowed by years of war, past ruins that once held laughter, shops, homes, memories now reduced to ash. The air smells of dust and smoke, the final breath of a collapsing empire. His young crew looks to him for strength, but inside he feels only a quiet, exhausted ache. Fighting continues in pockets, sharp bursts of gunfire, desperate final resistance. Every corner could be the last. Yet Alexei moves forward, steady, deliberate. He has walked this long road too far to falter now. On the 2nd of May, 1945, the guns fall silent. The war, for him, ends not with triumph, but with a hollow exhale. Victory tastes like metal. Standing in the ruins, he remembers Sidorov, the crash at Prokhorovka, every face lost along the way. He survived the fire, but part of him never left it.